We all contain magic. The question is, how do you contain your magic?
It connects you to one. Hold the hand of this once more until the story's done.
Containing your magic isn't about holding back. It's about holding space for vitality, creativity, and alchemy. It's about learning to nurture what fuels you and to release what no longer serves you. So there's more room for you to be you. Your magic is only as powerful as your ability to hold it, to focus it, and to own it. Through conversations, stories, and reflections, this podcast delves into mind-body wisdom, yoga, somatic practices, and self-care as pathways for deep, lasting transformation. Each episode is an invitation to tune in to the pulse of your own magic, to trust it, to honor it, and let it move through you in ways that heal, create, and ignite your fire without burning out. I'm your host, Sonia. I'm a transformational coach, yoga educator, singer, and embodied alchemist. Mind-body wisdom, intuition, freedom, creative expression, love, and joy are my guides. Sprinkle that with a dose of healthy discipline, and you've got my magic recipe for success. I'm here with you today to share the stories, the practices, and the awakenings that truly contain her magic. Let's begin. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 9 of Contain Her Magic. Today, we're going to look at how your truth will set you free beyond the story and into the body. This episode is about identity and what exists beyond it. The part of you that was there before the world shaped you. The part your body still remembers. The part of you that is still wild, still free. Because just like nature, you move in cycles of letting go and becoming again. So this is an invitation to move beyond the story and into your body, where your truth lives. I decided to do a solo episode today because I've had a little shift lately. I've had an experience that has changed the way I look at things, and I wanted to share it with you. In the past, I've had experiences that have made me the person who I am today. I've spoken about this in previous podcast episodes, and I do believe that, and I do believe that our story, our journey is important, and that it helps us to understand life in a way that is truly unique to us. So the idea is that our experiences shape us, and who we are today is beautiful. Our journey is unique. But there was a you before the journey began. There was a you that existed before anything touched you, before anyone influenced you, before life truly started to shape you. And I had an experience during a meditation practice, I guess it was last week, where I touched into that, where I was able to have this realization that seemingly so simple, but it was so powerful, maybe because it's subtle. Maybe because it's something that just is accessible that we don't think about unless we offer ourselves a moment of pause and a moment of reflection. But what happened to me was that I was working through a releasing of old identity. Things that, don't suit you, don't serve you. I talk an awful lot about that. So I was emptying out the container of the things that I felt weren't serving me any longer. Because it's a continuous evolution. And that's why it's important to continuously listen and reevaluate, be open to what it is that you're feeling and your body is saying, because these are the first clues that a recalibration maybe is a beneficial step for you. So that's what I was doing. And I've been struggling with some personal issues around things that limit me. And I would say other people's voices that I'm very aware. But being aware and then having that click moment are two different things. I can be aware that something's not right. I can be aware that there is a shift that would make me a happier individual if it were happen, but I don't always have necessarily the tools to get there, the pathway, the clarity, or the right timing. But this was it for me. So in this guided meditation, what happened was I went back to a place and time before the world started shaping me. And I went back to a place and time where I wasn't even my mother's or my father's child. And now this reminds me an awful lot of a song from The Doors called Wild Child. And I will admit, I was a pretty big Doors fan back in my teenage years. There's something about the whole counterculture movement that was happening at that time when the Doors were recording this music and where they were coming from that, of course, appeals to a lot of rebellious teenagers, but still appeals to that aspect of me today. And so, Wild Child, full of grace, savior of the human race. These are the lyrics that are in that song. And they really, really describe well what I feel right now and what my process was. So to go back to a point in time where you can actually feel into not belonging to a family, not being anybody but yourself, knowing that that is your wild nature and that in that, as a divine creation, you are full of grace. So that for me brought me a lot of liberation. Now, my core value is freedom, and I found that to be such a freeing experience. So that's really why I want to share it with you today. So I just want to flow into this conversation, and just to let you know also that at the end, as usual, we're going to do a guided practice that's going to help you to tap into this same wisdom and hopefully help you to clear out anything that no longer resembles you and might be holding you back. So back to the idea of freedom. Freedom is something that I discuss. Somebody asked me in a podcast interview recently to talk about it, and for me, freedom is more of a core value even than love, because I want to be free to love in the way that I choose. So when I consider that I am a person that doesn't need to be anything more than the very essence of who I was and who I still am, but who I was when I came into this world, then the freedom in that is that all of the choices, all of the possibilities still remain. Now, it's a question of getting out of your own jail, if you will. That's what I realized, that the memory of experience, although valuable, is in a way a roadblock. So when we recall an experience, I think it's important to say, this did happen. I acknowledge this. I have learned from this. But now I can choose to step aside from it. I don't have to drag it with me for the rest of my life. And again, this comes back to, what do you really want? The reason why I was going through this process was because I was having a conflict in a relationship with somebody. And I had the idea that, I needed boundaries. I needed to be able to hold my position because that was self-respect, because that was important, because I needed to cut noise out of my life that was not serving, that was not helpful. But the problem with that is that this particular relationship being very important to me, I wasn't comfortable with the idea of just shutting things out, preserving, being in my own little sphere where I was not able to be touched. I know that it makes me so much happier to imagine that this relationship is healed. But that's a two-way street. So you have how the other person in the relationship is responding, what they want, where they're at, which you have no control over. And then you have what you want and how you can respond to the situations that arise. And that's the only thing that you do have control over. So I realized that if I was truly going to be happy with this, that the boundary wasn't good enough, that I need to step outside the boundary and maybe say to myself, when I'm triggered, when I feel like I want to go into boundary mode, could I imagine for a moment that this person is actually saying what they're saying from a place of love? Because probably that's true. It's just that the way that it comes out, the conditioning, their experiences, don't resonate with my current reality. And so it causes friction. And I realized that the way forward for me was to imagine I am that person who already has this beautiful relationship that is healthy and healed. And that I can then, as a person who is healthy and healed, not a person who's trying to protect herself, I can then approach everything that is said, every interaction from that perspective. And that just changes everything. It's healing and it's freeing. And it's not an easy thing to do. So I'm not saying that we can always manage this in our relationships. It depends, who it's with, and it depends on what you're feeling in the moment. So everyone's journey is individual. This I respect, and I know that what I'm saying here today may or may not land. But if it does, then I'm really pleased, because for me, it's been a major shift. And it's not like I said, it's not like I didn't have the awareness, because I do this for a living. I coach, I guide people, I talk about it, I learn from people when I interview them on my podcast. I'm always in this very rich environment. So it's easy for me to see things, but we're human. We're all human. And sometimes it's not all that easy to integrate and to act on. So that's where I'm at today. We all move through life and we adapt. We become who we need to be to navigate what we've lived. And over time, that becomes, this is who I am. And I spoke about that back in episode 6, where we explored resilience, how we adapt and how we hold things together, how we become strong in the face of what life asks of us. And that strength is real and it serves us. But at some point, the very patterns that supported us can also begin to define us, and something begins to shift. Not always loudly, not always in a way we can explain, but there's a subtle sense of, this isn't all of me. There must be more. Or, this doesn't feel like me anymore. So how do you know? How do you know when it's time for a shift, when it's time to maybe upgrade your identity? Well, your body will tell you. Your emotions will tell you. Our minds sometimes tell us things that aren't ours. Sometimes our minds in the logical realm will dismiss certain emotions or feelings. But I really encourage you to sit with how you're feeling, both in your body in terms of sensation and how you're feeling in your emotions, because this will guide you to what you really, truly need. Pain and discomfort in your body are clues. Obviously, we have physical sensations because our actions, if we have an injury, we have something going on. But even there are some layers. Sometimes we have accidents, things happen. I discussed that in episode 5, where I talk about falling down the stairs on my butt. And, it took me a long time to heal that. And in that came some self-reflection. So even though sometimes things are very much rooted in the physical, we can take that as a doorway into looking at it a little bit more deeply. And other times we have things that happen that, sensations, aches and pains that we can't really explain, that just pop up, or illnesses. And these are all opportunities as well for us to stop, to pay attention, and to listen to what we truly, really need. And also there are, patterns. Maybe you've got a pattern of holding tension in your shoulders or in another part of your body. Maybe you feel like you're not breathing as well as you could be. Maybe you're feeling a little bit stuck in your chest and in your diaphragm. So this all relates to the heart center. Obviously, your posture makes a difference too, but how we carry ourselves through our day is often very reflective of what we're carrying on the inside. So if you consider somebody who walks in a way that is upright and natural, arms swinging, smile on their face, this sends out a message. And the opposite would be if somebody has head looking down, back hunched, sort of shuffling. This also sends a message. And the message is received in the outer world, but also in your inner world. So how we hold ourselves does make a difference. So I'm going to get into the mind-body coaching, the somatic side of this a little bit more deeply in a few moments. But I just want to get back into the recognition. How do you know when it's time for a shift? So the other is feelings. So this is pretty clear. We have feelings. We know how they appear in our body. Sometimes we feel them in the pit of our stomach. Sometimes we might hold our breath. Sometimes we cry. Sometimes we laugh. All of these feelings are amazingly good ways for you to tune into, am I aligned or not? And just because a feeling might be unpleasant doesn't mean that something isn't aligned. It actually means that something is becoming. It means that you're in a process of realizing that, wait a minute, a situation that perhaps I've tolerated in the past isn't working for me anymore. And it's causing me to have this reaction. And that reaction is your sign to say, ooh, I'm going to maybe see if I have other options. Who can I become through this that would serve me better, where I could be happier, more joyful? To return to your true self and your true nature. So some questions that you might ask yourself are, where does this tension or this pain live in my body? And then from there, explore, what version of me is living this pain? Is this something that is related to an experience that I've had? Is there something in memory that might be triggering this pain? Is it just something that I'm living currently? But what wisdom can I draw from it? And in trying to understand the messages that we get from our discomfort, then we can begin to grow from them. And we can't solve everything. You know, I know that sometimes in the reality of what is that we deal with things. You know, we have issues in our bodies, and we can't always say, oh, well, if I just had a different realization, then perhaps I would heal and I would move beyond. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm suggesting that in the process that you're in, if you're experiencing something that creates discomfort, be unattached to outcome. So regardless of what comes out of it, I'm going to enjoy the process, the journey, and then be curious and just see. So it's about opening our minds, or even losing our minds, because our minds, like I said, sometimes can lead us into boxes, into closed spaces. So I'm going to invite you to release what you think you know about whatever it is that you are going through, if you're going through something right now that you'd like to shift or change or heal, and just be in what we call beginner's mind, open to whatever may be, and see where that takes you. And you can also start to invite this kind of reflection into your life. If you're feeling great, that's wonderful. And I'm not suggesting that you should go and dig up old wounds and feel in a way that isn't aligned with where you are right now. But definitely making space for reflection, for meditation is invaluable. And I truly believe that we are so tuned in to so much more than we have access to in our daily lives, you know, in our routines, in our coming and going, and what's expected of us in society, and how we function. I think that there is definitely a call, particularly with so much information that surrounds us and world dynamics, that there is a call for pause and silence. There is a call for coming back to self. And I hope that you hear that call in a way that invites you into a process of growth and of blossoming. Because when we cultivate a relationship with ourselves, with our inner world, that will carry us through everything. It never leaves us. We're always with ourselves. So this relationship is so important to be able to fine-tune what you need, where you want to go, what your true desires and passions are, and what person do you want to be in this time. Because there's always a choice. That's the freedom that you have. You have the freedom to choose. Identity isn't just built from experience. It's built from the stories we tell ourselves about those experiences. And here's where it gets really interesting. Your mind can hold a story, but your body will tell you if it's true. You can feel it. Some stories expand you, and others contract you. And that contraction, it's often a sign that you're still living inside of something old. For me, this became really clear in that meditation practice because I had been feeling really grouchy. If I'm really honest, I'm feeling kind of crunchy and stuck, and I'm not used to feeling like that. I was definitely going through something. It was a moment for me to really wake up and realize, hey, this is your moment to make a change because you can't go on feeling the way you're feeling. And as I said, it's not something that I embody very often. So when it does show up, I pay attention. So I could feel really that some of the ways, as I explained earlier, that I was navigating, were not really helping me as much as they had in the past. And that's a really important distinction because I did need to go through that process to get to this one. So it's all one step leading to another. It's all building blocks. You know, nothing is really wrong. It's just sometimes it becomes outdated. I felt as though I was carrying a weight that wasn't necessary and that it was time to let that weight go. So after I had this epiphany, I guess a certain download, if you will, I really did feel it in my body. I felt the shift. I felt lighter. I felt better. I felt more like me. And you know, sometimes we forget what me feels like, but in these moments, you get glimpses of like, this bliss that returns that leads you home to yourself. It's about releasing who you're not. So the version of you who can receive what you desire can actually emerge. And this connects us back to what we explored in episode 7 about putting faith into action. Not just thinking differently, but beginning to trust something deeper within you and allowing that to guide how you move forward. And this is where the work goes deeper because your body isn't just reflecting your identity, it's creating it. Your identity lives in your nervous system, in your posture, as I mentioned, in the way you hold yourself without even thinking, in the way you brace, in the way you protect, in the way you move through the world. So if your body is in protection, you'll feel like a version of you who is limited, guarded, holding back. And when your body experiences safety, support, openness, you become someone who is available for life, for expression, for what you truly desire. And in episode 8, I spoke about living by design, trusting that what belongs to you will lift you. And what I see is that kind of alignment. I really do. It doesn't just happen around you. It begins within you, in your body, and in what you're available for. It's how you show up. So instead of trying to think your way into a new identity, you begin shifting your physiology, your breath, your posture, your patterns of holding. And as you do that, you don't just think differently, you become different. Okay, so this is something called bottom-up reprogramming or shifting, and it's different from, a cognitive approach where we think our way through our process. This really is, I'm going in through the body. The body is my pathway, my doorway into becoming something different. So I'm going to put my thoughts on hold and use my intellect and my noticing, my awareness to get the information from my body, from my sensation, and that's what we do in mind-body coaching. It's a process of listening. And again, coming back to this idea of how does this feel? And something else begins to happen here. When you shift the story you're holding and your body actually feels that shift, you begin to experience life differently. You relate differently. You respond differently. You choose differently. And from the outside, it can look like things are starting to align or even manifest. But what's really happening is you're no longer holding yourself in the same way. You're no longer reinforcing the same pattern. You could call that a shift in frequency, but it's not something abstract. It's the felt sense in your body. It's how open or contracted you are. It's how available you are for what you say you want. And truly, our emotions, if you can consider them as energy in motion, emotions, this starts to make a lot of sense. The energy that we get from an emotion is very, very powerful. And when we align that with our desires, watch out world, things are going to happen. But the truth is, nothing really happens without choice. So there's a bit of a paradox here Because even though the body leads the change, you need choice to make the shift. There's a moment where something in you says, this isn't it anymore. And that's a thought, that's a choice. But that choice has to be lived in your body. Otherwise, it doesn't take root. So if you've been listening over the past few episodes, you might start to feel how this all connects, from resilience to trusting yourself to living in alignment. And now coming back to the body as the place where all of that actually becomes real. So the way I see it now is, first, you recognize what no longer feels true, or what doesn't feel good, what doesn't feel right inside of you. Then you sit with that and you reveal what it is. Then you bring that into the body. You see what comes up for you when you sit with that in your body. And then you begin to embody the change. You begin to embody the new direction. And finally, you choose to live it. This is an invitation to become a shapeshifter, to literally transform your shape so you can transform your life. When you transform your body, it really truly does help you to reframe your experience. You live from a different physicality, and then you experience things differently, and then you can think about them differently, and you become different, as we've talked about. So really, that's shape-shifting. And you might also consider that it takes a little bit of that shape-shifter energy, that ability to navigate between truths, between worlds, between experiences, between layers of living in order to move forward. Being a little bit investigative into where's the truth? Who's telling me the truth? Am I telling myself the truth? These are questions that are really valuable as you move forward on your journey. And you might want to think about the fox. I did a little tarot card reading this morning to be able to align my words a little bit better. I like to do that. And I pulled the fox, and I thought at first, I was like, what did I pull the fox for? That's like cunning and deception when you read the card. But then it talks a little bit about shapeshifting, and it talks about this ability to know where the truth is and to use your own cunning to decipher any manipulation. So take that with you in your meditation, if you will, the fox. And the other is I pulled a card from my Angel Tarot deck. And again, it was very validating because I pulled the card of freedom. In episode 5, I did the same thing in Falling into Grace, and I pulled the card of grace. So this really helped me and guided me in being able to attach it, to connect it to something that is so deeply ingrained in who I am. And again, it brought me back into this self-knowledge. And the self-knowledge is also a really important part of this process. I'd like to tell you a little story. When I was a child, probably, 4 or 5 years old, I had what was probably a very annoying habit to the adults around me to always respond to everything with, I know. People would say things to me, and I remember I have this clear recollection of often just saying, yeah, I know. But you know what? Maybe I did. Maybe I did have a deeper sense of inner knowing then that, again, had not been obscured by the world, by experience. And I thought about that again during one of my meditations. It popped into my head, and how this deep sense of knowing is our pathway to freedom, and it's our pathway to fulfilling our desires, to our home. We are often in a position where we have to look up information, where we second guess, where we're being questioned. And there is, definitely a reason why we do this, because it's important to challenge your thoughts. It's important to have a difference of opinion to be able to grow and to evolve. I agree. But sometimes there's a little too much of that. And we need to balance it out with also moments of inner clarity. And there is so much that we can access when we take the time to do it. So I want you to trust in yourself and trust in your knowing, and maybe develop that in the next few weeks. Spring has just happened, and it is a time for bringing light back into ourselves as the sun starts to shine and we get outside a little bit more. We connect with nature, and it's also an invitation for you to reconnect with your own true nature. And maybe your own true nature is wild, a little bit like that wild child. Maybe your own true nature is something that you could approach with curiosity and go into activities that don't necessarily have a goal or a meaning. Explore your creativity. Just do something because you feel like doing something and see where that leads you. Be a little bit daring. Step outside the box. Invite something new into your life. Invite reflections that don't necessarily make sense in the moment, but honor them because maybe there's some wisdom in that, deep in that hasn't emerged yet. We are continuously in a state of becoming. I don't think there's ever a moment where a person says, okay, that's it, I've done it. I mean, we can achieve goals, we can have great experiences that make us feel very validated, but I think that the essence is to continue to grow, to continue to evolve. So in this cycle of becoming, we also let go of things that don't belong in our container. For true transformation to occur, something has to die. I know that sounds pretty extreme, but if you consider that there is a cycle, just like the cycle of the moon, of creativity, where there is the new moon, something is born, then it begins to gain energy and to shine. And then we have the full moon, where it's in its full expression, and then the waning moon, where we consider the experience and it just starts all over again. And it's in that waning moon phase where we can let go of the things that maybe didn't work so well or that no longer resemble us. So this is a beautiful thing because there's so much potential. There's so much possibility in this never-ending cycle. So you always have a chance to choose and to choose again and to become again and to really truly become the person that at the essence of it all makes you happy, lights you up. And in that will invite experiences that do the same. And if you keep with that idea, this means that we have the opportunity to birth ourselves. You have the opportunity to be the creator or the creatrix of your own life. You have that choice. And if you're listening to this and feeling like it's time for something to shift for you, if this resonates, this is exactly the kind of work that I guide you through inside my Contain Her Magic experience. This is a mind-body coaching workshop where we don't just talk about these things, we actually experience them. We move through the body, we shift patterns, we create that felt sense of alignment and expansion together. And I'm very excited to say that I'll be offering this in person at the Well Studio in Knowlton, Quebec, which is Jamie Moore's beautiful space. And if you've listened to episode 8, you'll know her and the energy that she holds. So this is a really, really nice opportunity for us to connect if you're from the Eastern Townships, and I hope to see you there. I'll also be bringing this work to the Big Retreat Festival in Pembrokeshire, Wales, UK on May 24th, which is going to be such a powerful space to experience this collectively. And if you're not local to either of those places, I have a mind-body coaching workshop online that you can attend. It's an introductory workshop where we actually sit with what is your goal and how can we get there using the wisdom of your body. All of the details are in the show notes. So as I mentioned earlier, I'd like to finish up with a guided somatic practice. Just take a moment now with me and notice the version of you you've been operating from. Where do you feel her in your body? Is there holding, tension, effort? And then, gently, sense into the version of you that feels more true. Not perfect, not finished, just more you. And notice how she feels, how she breathes, how she sits, how she exists in your body. And maybe, just for a moment, allow your body to soften into that. Just a little. Because even that is a different version of you. And as you sit with that different version of you, notice how it feels. Notice if you feel more expansive, more joy. And stay with that. Let that be your guide. So as we wrap up today, I just want to leave you with a few final thoughts. When you are living in alignment with that which lights you up, that is truly how you reclaim your light. You don't need to be anybody else but you. You just need to return to what your body has always known. Deep down inside, you know who you are. Returning again and again to the part of you that was always there, wild, free, and already whole. And if this resonated, you might want to revisit some of those earlier episodes, as I mentioned, because each one holds a different piece of this journey. And in the next episode, we're going to explore what happens when life itself invites or even forces this kind of shift through the lens of midlife and menopause. I can't wait to share that conversation with you. It's both magical and a little messy. I hope that these thoughts and stories that I've shared with you today have brought a little extra magic into your life, into your everyday. Thanks so much for being here. And if this episode helped to shift something in you, I would love for you to support the podcast in a simple way. You can share the episode with someone who might need it, leave a review, or just take a moment to follow or subscribe. It really helps this work reach more women who are ready to reclaim their light. And if it feels aligned, I would be truly grateful for your support in the form of a small donation. All the links are in the show notes. Well, my lovelies, I hope you feel uplifted and inspired. Remember, your fire is sacred. Hold it, nurture it, and let it light your path without burning out. And I hope that you'll join me for the next episode of Contain Her Magic, a sacred space to honor your path, discover your unique gifts, and to unapologetically embody your truth and your joy. I'm Sonia Bayo. Until next time, burn bright and hold on to your magic.